Welcome back to another episode of Campaign Inspiration. This will be an audio only one with just me, Bobby. So, here we go. Been toying around with the idea of doing recordings while I've been driving, so this will be kind of a pilot program here. So, we had our big rush there at Gen Con, and that's what a lot of our videos have been about, but now we're going to try to go back and kind of fill in some of the other things that we had started and continue on with those. And so this is the latest continuation of this. And so going forward, I do have some ideas already plotted out for a few of these, but also my plan was to kind of go along just to illustrate how easy it is to find ideas. Basically, if I watched a movie or if something came up in conversation that made me think of a movie or show or book or what have you and gave me ideas, well, I was going to do a thing and talk about it. So here we go. I happened to watch the two Arnold Schwarzenegger Conan movies over the weekend. That's Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer. And as I mentioned in the other video, basically any fantasy movie probably has something you can use. But these two in particular, there's a lot there. But they also illustrate some of the groundwork you have to do once you have selected a movie. And there are differences between the two movies that kind of highlight this. So, the first thing you have to decide once you've hit upon a movie, say you want to adapt Conan the Barbarian. Okay, now, the first question is, do you want to just take it literally as is and chuck it into whatever setting you're using, or build your setting around this? Or do you want to take something like it that hits all the notes but isn't necessarily a beat for beat remake? Or do you just want to take parts of it to use as either parts of a campaign, or if you need a random encounter, so you have one written up that feels more fleshed out, that won't feel quite so random? You know, these are the kinds of things you have to ask yourself. So I'm going to go with the assumption here, because I have to explain how I would do it. I'm going to go with the assumption that this is going to be plugged into a setting similar to the Forgotten Realms, or just plain the Forgotten Realms, because there's some elements in this movie that work really well for that. So that's what I'm going to go with the assumption going forward here for my explanation for how I would do this. Now, the next thing you need to ask yourself, in the narrative that you're drawing inspiration from, which in this case is Conan, does the story center on one person or a group of people? Because presumably your players are a group, a collective of some kind. So Conan the Barbarian, while there is a group, it does focus primarily on Conan. Now, Conan the Destroyer, there's more of a group dynamic going on. I mean, Conan's still the main star, but you know, there's a lot of moving parts around him, so it's a little bit easier from a group dynamic. So for Conan the Barbarian, though, this brings up the trouble of, okay, is one of your players essentially Conan, or is Conan an NPC that you guys meet along the way with the backstory from the movie, and then you guys get swept up in his adventure, and then somewhere towards the end, after he's taken out Thulsa Doom, you move on? Or do you guys jump in at some point in the story, and the narrative, instead of being focused on Conan, you take the same plot, but it's a group dynamic, and you just have to make some tweaks here and there to how things played out in the movie. Plus, obviously, it's not going to go exactly the same because your character's choices are going to impact the flow of events. So, for me, I would go with that last option. And probably you could either have the characters be fighters like Conan is towards the beginning of the movie, where he's being used as a gladiator, and have them all essentially have that background, and they collectively escape. That's one option. You've also got that they could just be in the same position that Conan and Subutai are in after they escape from the witch, and basically just play it out from there. And that's probably what I would go with, because you've already got the beginnings. You've already got a duet, so you're on your way to more of a group dynamic, and it's a lot less focused on the single character at that point. So I think it'd be easier to adapt from that point. So your characters, they have whatever their backstory is, and then they're on their way to whatever the next city is, and there they run into, they get the bright idea to go raid the Tower of Set. Now, since I would put it in the Forgotten Realms, I would have these people be worshippers of one of the Yuan-Ti gods. I believe Set is one of them. And I would have Thulsa Doom be a Yuan-Ti, and possibly Thorgrim and Rexor as well, and some of the other upper level. You're gonna have to expand this. There can't just be the one guy, his two lieutenants, and then a bunch of goons. Otherwise the adventure's not gonna be able to go to very high levels. So presumably there's going to have to be a little bit more to the hierarchy that you're going to have to flesh out. So these will be more, Yuan-Ti purebloods, and maybe once you get closer to the top, you encounter some Malisons and things like that. They'll they'll hear rumors of the gem, the Eye of the Serpent, or if you want to rename it, they'll go in, steal it, or try to steal it, hopefully succeed, fight the giant snake, escape, and then the king will confront them to give them what will be the larger mission of trying to rescue his daughter from Thulsa Doom. And that's when you'll get info on the larger fact that the cult is trying to infiltrate and trying to turn people against each other to allow the Yuan-Ti to control things. And so from there you play out more or less how the movie plays out, except instead of the singular character Conan abandoning Subutai and Valeria to go on the revenge quest, it'll be all of the characters go to try to rescue the princess. And then Akira can be a wizard NPC that they meet along the way. They can, they'll go about however they attempt to handle things from there. And then, if it's feasible, you bring the climax back around to where the movie ends with the big fight there at the ruins with Akira and your characters trying to lay the trap, the big ambush against the overwhelming odds. Now, the overwhelming odds are going to be mostly goobers, so the traps that will actually work against them. But this is the point where they're actually going to have to fight Rexor and Thorgrim, as if you follow the movie plot. Now, for them, I would probably make them paladins of Set, or clerics of Set, but probably paladins. because they're definitely more of the get up in your face and fight. And even though they don't display any powers in the movie, if Thulsa Doom could convey powers to them via set, I'm sure he would have. So, plus, again, this is a D&D campaign, not an exact duplicate of the movie. So that's the kind of thing that, the give and take here. And then Thulsa Doom himself, I would say, would be a high-level cleric. That's what he is. Now, what he does in the movie, though, actually kind of falls under druid powers as far as shape-shifting into the snake. So that might have to be like a one-off, or that'll be like as in previous editions, Yuan-Ti could transform into a snake form. So maybe bring that back, or have that be a wild talent that he possesses. And so you make him a high-level cleric with lots of blasty magic and whatnot. And at the end, either stick with what's in the movie, where he's basically got the followers rallied and is about to send them off to begin the campaign of carnage against their betters, their parents and judges and whatnot. Or you make it so there's a culmination of some kind of ritual where he's going to summon forth like an avatar of Set or something like that. So that's how, that's the broad strokes of how I would go about going with Conan the Barbarian. Now, it's up to you if you try to stretch that out into a full-length campaign, or if that's just like a side thing that happens for 4 or 5 levels. If it's part of a larger scheme, those are the kinds of things you have to decide. But I think any of those are doable with that. Now with Conan the Destroyer, it's a lot more, as a movie, it's a lot more like a D&D campaign. It's, here's the chosen princess who has to go get the thing from this wizard that is needed to open the key over here to get this thing that only she can grab, that is then the MacGuffin that we have to use to awaken Dagoth, the dreaming god. And it's very, very gimmicky. It's the fetch quest to get the thing, to get the other thing, to do the thing. You got a lot of that going on here. So because of that, you can do it as a quest in and of itself, campaign in and of itself, but you're going to have to pad it out, just like the other Conan movie. Or you can take the individual quests and use them as just generic, your characters need something to do, like, hey, here's a random thing, like, oh yeah, let's go off and get this thing. And oh yeah, let's go off and get this thing over here. And so you can do that without much modification, because thankfully, both places they have to go to get things, there are villains there waiting for them, and traps and everything else. So you can borrow a lot from this movie. And again, this one already has a team dynamic, as opposed to it's primarily solo Conan. So there's less of having to deal with that. But the first thing they have to go get, a wizard comes and transforms himself into like a ghostly bird and runs off with the princess. So they have to go get her. Well, Conan has to fight the wizard, Tothamon, and the wizard fights him in a giant hall of mirrors, where he all of his reflections all coalesce into this beast thing, and Conan has to figure out how to defeat it. And so that's a whole deal right there, that you can just take that straight up, just throw that into your campaign right there, just as is. And then the other, they had to take the jewel that they stole from the first wizard, and then she has to place it on an altar after they get inside, which required them to do some stuff with the door and send the thief in to lock the door in place so they could let it go, and there's some whole bits there. And then she goes in, places the gem on the thing, which causes this other thing to open up, shoot fire out, but since she's the chosen one, she can walk through it to get the horn that's inside the fire mouth breathing thing. which they need for the final leg of the whole deal. And then as they try to leave, there's a whole army of goons with their wizard leader. And then you have your wizard fight on the way out. And then it's a race to stop them from using the horn, because the other people aren't going to be able to control the god that's going to be resurrected. So, again, like, you could take that chunk and put it into another campaign with some minor tweaking, and just literally just take like the whole layout of the thing, just alter it a little bit, because you're probably not going to have a chosen one with you to walk through the flames and whatnot. But, or maybe you will, I don't know. And so you could take that, and then the final, the MacGuffin that they're going to use to resurrect their god, you know, that's another quest right there. So that movie can supply you with either 3 kind of overarching separate quests that you can just plug into your campaign here, there, and wherever, or you can pad them out and make them part of a larger campaign, or you could take the 2 movies and use the structure of Conan the Barbarian, the overarching structure, for your overall campaign, with the quests of Conan the Destroyer sprinkled in to kind of pad things out. So that would be an option as well. And I didn't watch the Jason Momoa Conan the Barbarian, so can't comment on that. I believe that was also a get all the pieces to the magic MacGuffin so we can start the Doomsday device kind of deal. So the one time I watched it, I think that was the plot. I mean, you could definitely take that plot as well, as long as you can tolerate watching the movie. So anyway, that's kind of the beginnings of where I would go with something like that. And hopefully for some future episodes of this, we'll elaborate on how to take specific movies like this and how to use them, or at least give you the beginnings of the ideas, because I mean, I can't sit here and chart out, A to B to C to D for you, but I can show you how I would do it in broad strokes, and give you an idea of maybe where to go, but also hopefully just explain, like, in general, look for these things in movies and books, and kind of figure out how to break them down and rebuild them to use them for D&D or Pathfinder or whatever game system you're using. So anyway, hopefully this was an informative episode, and we're going to be testing out this format going forward. I don't know how that's going to go, but I'm going to be doing a lot of driving here shortly, and we have the occasional issues with all of us getting together to record. So doing it like this will allow us, each of us, the 3 of us, to record, one-off things and put them out there, and maybe make an ongoing thing like this. So let's have to see. All right, well, thank you for listening, and if you're seeing this on YouTube, we always appreciate clicking the like and the subscribe, and all the things, make the comments, share it out there, So hopefully we can grow the channel. At least that's that's a desire, but that's up to you folks. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Talk to you later. Bye.